The Galactic Tribunal's ultimatum. The sky over Earth's capital turned violet the moment the transmission arrived. It wasn't the color that scared people. It was what came next. In homes, streets, command centers, and orbiting satellites, the same message played in flawless, translated precision. The voice was cold, synthetic, alien. To the people of Earth, you have violated Accord Protocol 7.1. You repel the reconnaissance vessel belonging to the Galactic Tribunal. This is considered an act of rebellion. As punishment, we deploy the prime beast of Ore Cathal. You have 7 Earth days. The message ended, and the world stopped. Within hours, evacuation orders rang out across nations. Spaceports overflowed with shuttles. The lucky were chosen by lottery. The rich bribed their way onto vessels. The rest waited, some in fear, some in silence. In the outskirts of Mexico City, 17-year-old Kale Reyes stood on the edge of a government transport line, a backpack slung over his shoulder, clutching a worn photo of his father. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had a spot. His mother made sure of it before she died last year. But Kale had slipped away, unnoticed. The station was swarming with soldiers and AI drones, too busy with the panicked masses to notice a skinny teenager walking the wrong way. No one would miss him. Not really. His father, Manuel Reyes, had died 3 years ago working on something called Project Echofall, a military research initiative that was quickly buried by Earth's Unified Defense Command. No one spoke about it. All Kale had were fragments, a half-burned journal, 3 encrypted files, and 1 final conversation. If something happens, his father had said, coughing blood on white sheets, it won't be guns that save us. It'll be the thing inside us. Something we haven't remembered yet. At the time, it sounded like nonsense. Like grief and fever had turned his brilliant father into a philosopher. But now an immortal beast, one the tribunal claimed had devoured stars, was coming to kill them all. And humanity had nothing left but a few thousand nukes and prayers. Kale kept walking. He passed the ruins of the old university, its dome shattered from the riots the night before. Someone had spray-painted "We Die on Our Feet" across the concrete in bright red. He stopped for a moment, staring, then kept going. In orbit, Earth's leaders held emergency calls with alien diplomats. The tribunal refused every plea for mercy. The prime beast wasn't a weapon, they called it consequence. It had been used 9 times in the last 1,000 years. No civilization survived more than an hour after its arrival. Earth's generals proposed a unified strike. The scientists called it suicide. One woman, Dr. Miriam Lowe, formerly of Project Echofall, whispered something in a briefing that no one heard until it was too late. If it really is coming, there might be only one chance. And it won't come from us. Kale reached the center of the city. It was a ghost town now, patrolled by leftover drones and flickering holo ads still urging people to evacuate. He walked through the ruins of the lab where his father once worked. The doors were fused shut by plasma fire. Everything important had been wiped, deleted, or torched. Everything except one scorched metal crate in the corner. Kale opened it. Inside, a glove. Old, cracked but humming faintly. He slid it onto his hand. Nothing happened. He laughed bitterly. Then pain struck, sharp like fire threading through his bones. He collapsed. And for 1 second, just one, he felt something deep beneath his skin stir. Like a switch had flipped. Like his body wasn't fully his anymore. A whisper echoed in his skull. Not a word. A feeling. Awaken. He screamed. Then the world went dark. Somewhere across the galaxy, aboard a tribunal command ship orbiting Saturn, the beast was released from cryo-bindings. 10 miles long, shaped like a lion carved from obsidian and storm clouds. Eyes like dying suns. It did not roar. It simply opened its eyes, and space bent around it. Kale woke hours later on the cold ground. The glove was gone, or maybe it had sunk into his skin. His veins still glowed faintly with blue-white fire. He looked up at the stars. Something had changed, and for the first time, Kale Reyes wasn't afraid. Not of death, not of monsters, not even of gods. The god beast descends. The beast did not arrive with fanfare. It came like a shadow pulled across the stars, blotting out the sun as it passed Saturn's rings. No engines, no flame, no sound, only a pressure like something in the universe had sighed. On every planet tuned to tribunal frequencies, the broadcast began. Billions of sentient beings from thousands of systems watched as the camera feeds locked onto Earth. The event was labeled Cleansing Procedure 10A. Civilized extermination. Nothing more. The Galactic Tribunal had done this before. And yet this time, something felt different. Kale Reyes stood in the skeletal remains of a city, square once bursting with life. Now it was empty. A stillness clung to the air like fog. He had no plan, no weapon, no hope, but he felt something, a presence inside his bones, humming low like a distant drumbeat. It pulsed with every heartbeat, quickening as the sky above shimmered, a crack like reality itself tearing open. He looked up and saw it. It wasn't a beast. It was a nightmare given form. 10 stories tall, yet somehow larger than that. Its body flowed like liquid obsidian, covered in symbols that moved across its skin like smoke. Limbs like towers, jaws layered with rows of crystalline teeth. 6 burning red eyes scanning Earth with mathematical hatred. The prime beast of Orikithal had arrived. Kale fell to one knee as the pressure in the air thickened. His lungs burned. His vision flickered. This wasn't just power. It was history, compressed into a body forged for annihilation. This creature had ended empires. He could feel it scanning the world, judging. Not for sin, not for rebellion, just for imperfection. In orbit, Earth's defense grid sprang to life. Drones swarmed, missiles armed, railguns charged. A single command rang out. Fire. Everything. The sky lit up. Kale watched from the ground as streaks of plasma carved the heavens. Explosions thundered across the stratosphere as every weapon humanity had screamed defiance. Then silence. The smoke cleared. The beast stood untouched. And then it moved. Its first step leveled a mountain. The second turned a lake into glass. Every stride collapsed buildings, melted roads, and left a trail of radiation and warped gravity in its wake. Kale gritted his teeth. The pulsing in his chest grew faster. His father's words returned, sharp and sudden. It won't be guns that save us. It'll be the thing inside us. Was this what he meant? The glove was gone, but something was still inside him, curled deep in the marrow of his bones. Whatever Project Echo Fall had started wasn't over. The beast raised its arm. A surge of black fire crackled through the clouds. It aimed not at soldiers, not at tanks or satellites. It aimed at him. Kale didn't think. He ran. The blast hit the city center with the force of a meteor. Kale dove behind a chunk of fallen concrete as the world exploded around him. Heat scalded his back. His ears rang. He rolled over, gasping, and realized something was wrong. He wasn't burned, not even a scratch. His skin shimmered faintly, like light on water. The glowing lines beneath it, blue, silver, white, had brightened. His heart beat once, and the world slowed. The beast took another step, its attention fixed on him now. Curious, Kale stood up. "You want me?" he whispered. "Then come." In the tribunal observation deck, silence gripped the room. The elders murmured, "There's a human still alive, directly beneath it." "That's impossible," another replied. "Unless." Kale took a step forward. His legs didn't tremble. Another step. He was beneath the shadow now. The beast lowered its head, 6 eyes glowing. Kale raised his fist. He didn't know why. It felt stupid. It felt pointless. But the pulse in his chest told him something else. "You are more." He clenched his hand. His bones cracked. The air screamed. And he threw the punch. Time collapsed. The moment stretched into eternity. Where his fist met the beast's jaw, light exploded. A ripple tore through space, flattening nearby ruins. The air turned white-hot. The pressure wave launched satellites out of orbit. The beast's skull shattered, imploding inward like it had been struck by a dying star. 1 second it was alive. The next it was falling. And then it was nothing. Kale dropped to his knees, then collapsed unconscious. A camera drone, hovering miles away, caught the entire thing. The moment, the fist, the death. Galactic feeds froze in awe. Billions of viewers across the galaxy sat in silence, staring at the replay. One child, one punch, one dead god, one punch. There was silence. No thunder, no triumphant fanfare. Just a dead, impossible stillness. The kind of silence that follows catastrophe, when even the universe forgets to breathe. The prime beast of Orikithul, feared across millennia, worshipped by civilizations older than Earth's crust, lay motionless in the crater it created upon impact. Its body, if you could call it that, had collapsed like brittle stone. Where once it shimmered with divine energy and living geometry, now it was just cracked, smoking rubble. The symbols etched in its flesh flickered, then vanished. Its 6 eyes, brighter than suns, had dimmed forever. Across the galaxy, beings of every kind, gelatinous, carbon-based, crystalline, synthetic, watched the footage in disbelief. The Tribunal's live stream, once intended to showcase Earth's extermination, had caught every frame. The approach, the confrontation, the punch, and the fall. A single human, maybe 17 standard years old, striking with a force that defied understanding, physics, logic, and doctrine. The camera drone's lens cracked moments after the impact, but it held long enough to witness the impossible. And in every corner of the galaxy, the question ignited like wildfire. Were the humans? On Earth, the skies were still thick with smoke. Ash rained gently over what remained of the capital. Kale Reyes lay unconscious at the heart of the crater, curled on his side like a child who'd simply gone to sleep. He should have been vaporized by the shockwave. Every calculation said so. Instead, he breathed, shallow, steady. His pulse thudded slowly beneath his skin, the strange glow in his veins flickering like embers fading in the dark. Beside him, the cracked earth radiated outward in a perfect circle, miles wide, where the beast had died. Soldiers arrived first, unsure if the battle was still going. Some raised weapons. Others fell to their knees. But none of them dared step into the circle. Not yet. Hours passed. Emergency crews finally dared to move in. Kale's body was rushed to a medevac ship. Vitals normal. No burns. No broken bones. The only anomaly? An energy signature radiating from his core, unreadable by human instruments, but eerily similar to a frequency detected in the beast itself. A resonance. A mirror. Dr. Miriam Lowe, once lead researcher of Project Echofall, stood at Kale's side in the recovery chamber, staring through the glass. He did it, she whispered. God help us. He really did it. In the Tribunal's high chamber, a floating palace orbiting Alpha Primaris, an emergency session was called. Elder Zorthu, composed of telepathic flame and memory crystal, slammed his limb on the podium. Unacceptable. The beast was bound to our will. It cannot be killed, let alone by a primitive mammal. Another elder, a serpentine being with 6 tongues, shook its head. It is dead. The footage is authentic. Verified. Replayed over 10 billion times already. Whispers echoed across the chamber. The humans had no right. They were supposed to be children. A young race, reckless, barely evolved. Not this. Not capable of this. What if, said a smaller voice near the center, what if it wasn't a weapon? What if it was him? A hush fell. Back on Earth, Kale awoke. Light burned behind his eyes. He blinked hard and sat up too fast. A wave of nausea hit, followed by pain, everywhere. His body ached in places he didn't know could ache. But he was alive. His hands trembled. His pulse raced. He looked down at his chest and saw faint lines glowing under his skin. Blue, silver, and something else, something ancient. He slid his feet to the ground. Cold metal. Sterile walls. He was in a medical unit. A figure moved toward him. Dr. Lowe. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply looked at him and said, "Do you know what you've done?" Kale's voice came out hoarse, cracked. "I killed it." "You did more than that," she said quietly. "You changed everything." News reached Earth before official channels could control it. Footage leaked. Uploaded. Downloaded. translated into every major galactic dialect. Artists drew murals. Conspiracists screamed prophecy. Alien leaders demanded answers. Armies repositioned fleets. Some called it a miracle, others a threat. Some whispered the word God, and others, they began planning for war. Kale stared at his hand that had thrown the punch. It didn't feel like power. It didn't feel like glory. It felt like weight, like responsibility. He hadn't meant to change the world. He just tried to survive. But now the stars were watching, and he didn't know if they were afraid or getting ready to strike. What comes after fear? Kale Reyes stood in the quiet of a hospital room that didn't feel like it belonged on Earth anymore. The world outside had changed, and so had he. He was no longer just a boy running from grief, hiding from the future in the shell of his father's past. Now, the weight of a galaxy's attention pressed against the glass window like a storm trying to break in. They called him the God-Slayer, the Singularity Child, the weapon that wasn't meant to be. But Kale? He didn't feel like any of those things. He just felt tired. Dr. Miriam Lowe stood beside him, hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes, always cold and brilliant, softened now as she looked at him. Not like a subject, but like a survivor. "I want to show you something," she said quietly. She tapped her wrist pad. The wall screen flickered on, playing intercepted galactic transmissions. Dozens of languages poured through, alien symbols scrolling beneath each video. But the image was always the same. Him, standing beneath the shattered body of the beast. The punch, the crater, the impossible. Some videos praised him like a savior. Others showed militant races declaring Earth a threat. A few broadcast funeral chants for the fallen god. Every broadcast had one thing in common. They feared him. "Why are you showing me this?" Kale asked, voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Lowe didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the window. "Because this," she nodded toward the screen, "is what comes after fear. Admiration, hatred, obsession, retaliation." Kale turned away, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't want this." "I know," she said, "but the galaxy doesn't care what you wanted." The government moved fast. Too fast. Within days of Kale's recovery, Earth's Unified Defense Command summoned him to a secure bunker beneath the Himalayas. A new council was forming, one built not around alliances or treaties, but around him. "Your existence is now political," said a gray-suited man with a permanent sneer. "You've made Earth a superpower. The galaxy just doesn't know how to respond yet." Kale sat at the long table, surrounded by admirals, ambassadors, and generals. "I didn't ask to be a weapon," he said. "You didn't ask to be human, either," replied a woman with sharp eyes. "But here you are." They wanted to train him, study him, package him as Earth's greatest deterrent. He wanted to run. That night, Kale wandered to the surface. The wind was bitter, thin at this altitude. Snow whipped across the jagged cliffs. But he needed the cold. He needed to feel something real. The stars overhead were blinding. He thought about his father, how he used to trace constellations with his finger and tell Kale stories about each one. How he believed there were powers older than science, dormant instincts inside humanity, sleeping and waiting to be remembered. Kale looked at his hand. He still didn't understand what had happened, how he'd survived, how his body had become something that could kill gods. But he remembered the feeling right before the punch, like the universe had opened a door inside him, like something had chosen him. Or worse, maybe it was never a choice at all. In orbit, hidden from Earth satellites, a cloaked tribunal vessel hovered in silence. Inside, two observers watched a loop of the battle, frame by frame, analyzing every microsecond. "He's not just enhanced," one whispered. "He's connected, bound to something older than the tribunal, something pre-accord." The other nodded. "What Project Echo Fall tried to tap into, he became it. So what do we do?" The answer came cold and final. "We prepare for extinction, or domination, or both." Back on Earth, Kale descended the mountain and sat by the edge of a frozen lake, staring at his reflection. The glow in his chest was fainter now. The energy dimmed, but it was still there, still waiting, still watching. He thought about the people who died the day the beast arrived. about the ones who would die in the wars to come, about the alien children on distant worlds watching him with awe or terror or envy. He didn't want to be a symbol, but he already was, and symbols couldn't hide. Footsteps crunched behind him. It was Dr. Lowe again. "They're going to come for you," she said. Kale didn't turn around. "The tribunal?" She nodded. "And others. The galaxy won't sit still. Some will try to destroy you. Some will want to become you." He stood slowly, his breath misting in the frozen air. "I'm not ready," he admitted. "No one ever is," she replied. But in Not Alone, she handed him something, a small data drive. His father's final logs. Unredacted. "Start there," she said. "Find out what he was really building." Kale closed his fingers around the drive. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was waiting for fate to decide. Now he was walking toward it. His father's voice. The data drive was small, unimposing. Just brushed steel, the size of Kale's thumb. But in his hand, it felt like it weighed 1,000 tons. He sat alone in a quiet corner of the bunker's deep archives, far from the endless meetings and the whispers about what he was becoming. Here it was still. No military eyes. No politics. Just him, a console, and the ghost of a man he was still trying to understand. He slotted the drive into the terminal. The screen flickered. Project Echo Fall. Log access. Dr. Elias Reyes. Then, a face appeared. Familiar and distant at once. A little older than he remembered, grayer, leaner. But the eyes were the same. Steady, curious, burdened. Kale leaned forward. His father looked into the camera and spoke. "If you're watching this, then I'm dead. And Echo Fall either worked, or we've doomed everything." Kale's hands tightened. The air felt thinner. His father's voice wasn't warm. It was tired, controlled, like he was trying to hold the weight of the universe behind his words. "I started Echo Fall because I saw the pattern. The tribunal, the cleansings, the silent genocide masked as diplomacy. They saw us as unstable, but what they really feared was our potential." He paused, swallowing hard. "Every species in the tribunal has plateaued. Perfected. They stopped evolving. But humans? We were still becoming." The screen shifted. Diagrams, neural scans, DNA structures spliced with ancient signal overlays. Something in us reacts to entropy, pressure, loss. We don't just survive, we accelerate. And when I exposed certain volunteers to quantum stress simulations, some of them began to exhibit changes. Energy conversion, neural firing like stars collapsing. Kale stared. His chest burned, faint light flickering under his skin. "And then there was you." The screen showed baby Kale, hooked to monitors, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He felt a jolt in his stomach. His mind reeled. He had been part of the experiment. Not later. Not after. From birth. His whole life had been shaped by it. You survived things you shouldn't have. Radiation. Cold. Emotional trauma. You didn't break. You bent. You adapted. I knew what it meant. But I didn't want to believe I'd done it to my own son. His father leaned forward in the video. "No lab coat now. Just a man. I didn't build a weapon, Kale. I tried to build hope. A way to force evolution forward. To remind the galaxy that humanity still had teeth. But if the beast came, I knew only one being could stop it." Kale's breath hitched. "You." The recording ended. The screen went black. Kale sat frozen, the silence ringing louder than anything he'd ever heard. His whole life had been shaped by something done before he could say his first word. He wasn't just the son of a scientist. He was the final outcome of a war his father had waged in secret. Not a soldier, not a mistake, but a spark. He left the archive without speaking. The bunker lights buzzed overhead. People moved out of his way without being told to. He wasn't the boy who'd collapsed in that crater anymore. He could feel the change, the way others looked at him, like he was a loaded gun with no safety. Outside, a storm gathered over the mountain peaks. The wind howled, and something else stirred inside him, ancient and rising. He closed his eyes, and there it was, that hum again, that pulse. He opened his hand, and light shimmered faintly across his palm. Not destructive, not wild, just alive. He didn't understand all of it yet. But now it didn't scare him, because now he knew the truth. He wasn't the end. He was the beginning. Meanwhile, in deep space, in a hidden tribunal war chamber orbiting a dead sun, the elders gathered in shadows. One spoke in a voice like splinter glass. The Godslayer has awakened. Another, his genome sings in a forgotten tongue. One we buried when the old war ended. A third, he will not kneel. His species will rise behind him. Silence. Then the first elder leaned forward, voice cold as the void. Then we will burn their world before they remember who they are. Back on Earth, Kale Reyes stood alone at the top of the mountain, the wind howling through his jacket, the stars burning above like ancient witnesses. He looked at his hands, and for the first time, he didn't ask why me. He asked what now, and deep inside, something answered. Fight, not for revenge, not for survival, but for the future his father once believed in. The spark and the storm. The stars were no longer silent. Across the known galaxy, fleets stirred in the void. Moon forges ignited, birthing weapons meant to unmake planets. Cloaked agents vanished from embassies. Ancient war constructs were pulled from beneath oceans on distant worlds, dormant titans breathing again. The tribunal had made its decision. Humanity would not be tolerated. Not now. Not with one of their own having killed the beast. Not when fear had turned into doubt, and doubt into cracks in the hierarchy they'd built over millennia. The age of control was ending, and in its place, something raw and dangerous was rising. On Earth, Kale Reyes stood before the United Planetary Council. The war had not begun yet, but it was no longer a question of if. The world's leaders, for once, were aligned, not by agreement, but by necessity. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to strike first. Most simply didn't know what to do with the boy who had cracked the sky open. Kale didn't ask for permission anymore. He walked to the center of the chamber, heart steady, eyes clear. "I'm not your weapon," he said, "but I am your warning." The room fell silent. "They're coming," he continued, "because they're afraid we've remembered what we are, what we could become." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But he didn't stop. "My father thought we had more in us, something old, something sleeping. And I've seen it. I am it. But I'm not the only one. I know I'm not." He paused, scanning the room. "You want to survive this? Then stop asking how to contain me, and start asking how to awaken everyone else." The words spread faster than any weapon. Across Earth, people felt something stir, something they didn't have a name for. Not rage, not pride, but potential. The energy that comes from standing on the edge of extinction and choosing to evolve instead of disappear. The awakening had begun, and Kale, he became its center. In orbit, the tribunal finally struck. A fleet of dreadnoughts entered Earth's system, silent, black as the grave, their weapons ancient enough to erase atmospheres. Warnings were not issued. No ultimatums. Only one message came through. And it wasn't for the governments of Earth. It was for Kale. "Surrender yourself, or we will cleanse your world in memory fire." He watched the message from a hill overlooking what used to be his neighborhood. The crater where the beast had fallen was now filled with light, an energy field slowly expanding across the Earth's crust. Not a wound, a seed. Kale stood in the glow and answered simply, "Come and try." The first wave struck atmosphere. Orbital kinetic rods, designed to bypass shields and drills through continents. Kale didn't wait for the impact. He moved. One moment he was on the ground. The next, he was in the sky, burning with light that no human I had seen before. The air didn't hold him. He tore through it. And when he reached the first rod, he didn't punch it. He touched it, and it unraveled. Not shattered, unwound. Its molecular bonds released like folded paper. The world watched in silence as the rest of the rods fell, only to be dismantled midair, one, by a boy who shouldn't be. The tribunal's fleet fired next, full planetary payload. Lasers, gravity wells, annihilation pulses. Kale flew through them all. He wasn't just resisting. He was learning, adapting. He began to move with a speed the ships couldn't predict. He was in front of them before sensors registered movement. One ship exploded in a blossom of blue light. Another split cleanly down the middle, untouched but undone. And then he stopped. at the center of the fleet, surrounded, his hands open. A voice broadcast across every ship. "Look at me." And they did. "This is what you fear," he said, "because you buried it in your cells 1,000 years ago. But we never forgot." He raised his hand. Energy swirled. Not a weapon. A signal. A call. Back on Earth, something responded. Across cities and fields, people began to glow. Not all, but many. Soldiers, farmers, children. The dormant energy that once flowed only through Kale now pulsed across the planet like a second heartbeat. The awakening wasn't just his. It was theirs. Humanity remembered. The first evolved generation had begun. The tribunal fled, not defeated by war, but undone by their own fear. Because what they saw wasn't one godlike being. It was a species waking up, and understanding that they were never supposed to stay small. Kale returned to Earth days later, his clothes burned, his body aching. But he smiled, not because he had won, but because he hadn't been alone. Dr. Loam met him as he touched down. "You look different," she said. "I am," he replied. "We all are." She looked toward the stars. "And what now?" Kale turned his eyes to the sky. "We remember who we were supposed to be, and we make damn sure the galaxy never forgets again."